TIE Singapore, and this is the first event of our year. And we couldn't have asked for a better setting as well as a better occasion. And before I talk about why we're all here, I'm sure we know why we're here, but just quick introduction about TIE, because obviously most of you are TIE members, some of you are new, some of you are looking to join TIE. TIE essentially is the largest network of entrepreneurs, investors, corporate folks around the world, which the whole objective is to foster entrepreneurship, because we genuinely believe that entrepreneurship is good for the world. It was started in the early 90s in the US, and over the last 30 plus years, the organization exists in about 66 city chapters. Singapore has been around for about 24, 25 years. And really glad to see how strong and warm the network is. In fact, a lot of credit goes to Puneet for sort of just revitalizing the TIE Singapore chapter over the last 15 odd years, and really blessed to see the community and how the community comes together to help entrepreneurs, investors make the right connections, whether it's through access to connections, capital, time, expertise, people, what have you. And as part of TIE, we do these sessions once a month at least to talk about success stories, to talk about issues that matter to entrepreneurs, that matter to us as individuals. And this evening we've gathered to celebrate a momentous occasion. Amongst us, it's really a matter of pride that, Shri Atul Temurnikar, he's been a long-standing member of TIE, and as most of you would have known by now, he's been conferred upon and he's been awarded the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, Pravasi Bharatiya Samman, right, for 2020. Once again, a big round of applause for Atul. Atul's obviously, had a fantastic journey as an entrepreneur. In fact, many of us are, personal beneficiaries. My own son goes to GIS, so we've seen and, benefited from the work that Atul's done. But I think, it's, when I look back or when I've read about Atul's journey, it's just incredible what he's achieved from his early days, and then, when he moved to Singapore and with what he's created through the Global Schools Foundation. And so, of course, the award is massive. It means a lot to us at the TIE community for the diaspora, because this is what inspires many of us, and hopefully we can emulate, and the future generation of entrepreneurs can emulate what people like Atul, of course Puneet, because Puneet himself is a very, very successful entrepreneur and investor. And when we were sort of conceptualizing this session today, we were wondering who's the best person to moderate. And we couldn't think of a better person than Puneet because of many reasons. Puneet is the face of TIE for many of us in Singapore. He embodies what TIE sort of stands for. He is obviously a very successful entrepreneur investor. But most importantly, which I only got to know a month ago, that Puneet and Atulji are very good friends. In fact, they were roommates. Now imagine, right? Exactly. So, for someone to uncover the backstory, you can't have a better person than a college roommate who's probably seen you at your highs, lows. So we're hoping, Puneet, apart from all the great stories, you can also uncover some secrets, some college room dorm secrets. And so, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, over to Puneet and Atul. It's going to be a session for about 30-40 minutes. We're going to open up for questions, and then we'll network, have fun, and of course, feel free to reach out to Atul as well. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Prantik. I just want to tell you one thing, though, that as the old adage goes, people in glass houses don't throw stones at others. So while he was my roommate, I was his roommate as well. So we will not be discussing that for sure. Ply me with a few drinks, and then I can kind of claim alcohol as being the culprit there. But really, turning over to Atul. Atul, thank you so much for coming over. Really, it's a pleasure. Of course, I rewind back to almost 4 decades ago when we were roommates. We both started work at HCL, both joined HCL in 1985. It also happens that actually both Atul and I went to college at the same city in Nagpur. Atul went to REC over there, I went to LIT, and we had a great time. But one of the things that I want to ask Atul is, from being in the tech sector, he then suddenly made a switch from technology to education. That's a big switch, especially when he was doing very well. He was with IBM after HCL. He was with IBM doing extremely well. So that pivot, that change, how did that come about? And of course, the big thing with that is that, was that being in the tech sector, was that an easy thing to do, a hard thing to do? You had to unlearn many things, you had to learn many things, so the impediments, the challenges, the help, the aid. So I would love to know how, when you came here to Singapore and you moved over, because much of your persona today is related to the Global Indian School, but that switch would be interesting to know.
Thank you, Puneet. Thank you, Prantik, for having me. It's a great family reunion for all of us, and I've been off and on at the TIE sessions, but whenever Puneet calls me, I never say no. But that's very interesting. Before I go into everything, I also have my wife here, Aparna. Actually, she's the first investor in GIS. She gave me the first check to go and start GIS, so that is history. But more importantly, Puneet and I actually stayed not in the college, but in Mumbai. And we stayed in a very exotic place called Bandra West. And in Bandra West, our neighbors were the Kapoor family.
Hey, don't sell ourselves short. We lived in Pali Hill.
Yeah, Pali Hill.
On Nargis Dutt Road. Okay, that's it. We said Dilip Kumar's was house number 1 and ours was house number 3. So let's get that right.
That's correct. But that was interesting, and it's amazing memories we had those days. We had one more colleague with us that time. His name was Vineet Nair. Vineet, of course, went on to become CEO of HCL Technologies, and I think he's now into something on education. But while the journey from tech to education was, I would say, a combination of accidental and something that I wanted to do. Accidental because it was that Y2K period, 98, 99, where everybody in the tech was so excited. I remember Puneet used to come from Bay Area, and he used to say, "Arey yaar, Atul, yahan aaja, yahan to fate tak opportunity hai." And I mean, lots of opportunities here, so come over to Bay Area. And I was like, "Yeah, I like Singapore. I want to just continue here and do something." Okay, fine. Y2K passed away, but I actually realized they were not really the ultra-rich families, but a lot of families in the middle class who were not having expat packages. They felt a little bit, punched on both sides, because A, if they wanted a choice school, they couldn't get it because of the demographic and all that. And B, if they wanted a school, that was just way beyond their means. So I said, can we create a combination where you can have a school, international school, you can all the works, the curriculum, the pedagogy and everything, but can you also have something which is affordable by people? That actually set the ball rolling for the first conceptual GIS in Singapore. And for me also, it was not like a cakewalk. It was always like, talking to friends. We used to sit on Anson Road. My office was just down the line here, behind IBM Towers. And we used to sit there in a coffee shop and debate about, some families used to relocate back, or maybe part of the family's spouses and kids used to go back after their primary years. And so we said, you should have an Indian school here, but there's no Indian curriculum school. So it was really, the trigger was really based on conversations. I took that very seriously. My colleagues, my friends who used to be there, they say, "Yeah, ye karna hai, so you go fall into the well. We are not going to come with you." But I was not looking at that from an investing point of view. It was more about making sure that we found a solution to a community problem. So it was purely that solution that we were looking for. And I would say when you start, you're pretty on your own, right? You talk to people, you validate some of your thoughts. And I was very fortunate to be validating it with the right people. I checked with a few people in NTU, some of our friends who are professors. I checked with people in India. I said, look, this is cool to be started. I'm not from the sector. I don't know how to go about it. But the advice that I got, the guidance I got during those days, particularly the launch years, were very, very important. And I think they were very rightly guiding us. Second thing is, going from tech to education, I was wondering whether it's a handicap or it's a positive thing for it. Handicap because you don't know the domain expertise. But is that going to be positive in some way? And I felt, because I had done a lot of work during my HCL days in Singapore as well as in IBM days. A lot of work for Ministry of Law, LTA, couple of other ministries, IRAS. And we had done a lot of work which those days used to be called business process engineering. Very fancy word, you know. So we were parked under that team and we were saying, we were told that, okay, guys, you want to convert paper to technology? These are the guys, go and do it. So we used to sit down in our current Fullerton Hotel, which used to be the GPO that time, IRAS head office, sit there and do projects. So what were the projects that we did were, you know, literally taking the immigration forms and converting them, scanning them and converting them into data, taking IRAS form B1 and converting it to data. And that's how this whole experience about how do you automate, how do you manage business processes, and how do you make sure that they're efficient to your customers' taste and likings. That was the experience I picked up there. So when I got into education, I literally felt that this workflow automation is a very important role in the education aspect, apart from what we do. Because if you look at institutions generally, they are very fragmented. Most of the schools are like single standalone schools, very few network schools, and even within the standalone schools, there's actually on the outside looks very fancy, but internally there's no cohesion, no collaboration. It could be very low on the side, but as well as you could actually have a lot of paperwork going on. And I know many schools, very senior people, they're bogged down by creating Word documents and Excel sheets and all that. Everything you ask for, you get it. But then they would be spending like 3/4 of their time on making all these documents. So I realized that technology experience for me was very useful. So I started telling them, I said, automate this. So we first said, okay, automate the admissions process. You should have a website, you go there, fill the form. And in those 2002 days, it was pretty new. People were not really used to having, they wanted a prospectus and you want to fill a form and then submit it. We said, no, nothing doing. And actually, some of those experiences helped us. But when we got into education, we realized it was a very serious business. Something you can't take it for granted, because it's almost like you have a gun to your head 24/7. And it's because parents who are, you know, putting their kids into your safety environments, people are expecting their careers to be shaped up. There's a lot of expectations to be balanced, a lot of things to be managed in regards to the health and mental health and the well-being of the child. And this is something which is not very easy. I saw a statement yesterday about, oh, families should not get involved with children are fighting. Well, we do that all the time. Schools actually have to, arbitrage between two fighting parents, and I did once, but after that I didn't do it. I said, it's just too much. Somebody pushed somebody fell down, had a small surgery on the knee or whatever, and then the parents are like, I sue you, and then somebody has to go down and mediate between them. But I think, fun apart, this is generally, I would say the sector is extremely requires commitment. It requires a lot of dedication by educators. If you're not a good educator, you will just perish. And there's no question whether, because parents can see that in very quickly. Within 6 months of their child being there, they know is it the right school or the bad school. And they can easily decide on that. But the good part is we always had, because we started in Singapore, we had fantastic set of pool of teachers, very highly qualified. Sometimes we got criticized for this because, they said, somebody said, you're just hiring the housewives. I said, hello, they are qualified in the first place. And secondly, we're also bringing in experienced teachers from overseas. So, well, there are always critics in every field. There are always critics about how do you grow. I remember there was a statement by one of my ex-colleagues in IBM, tu kya Ambani hai kya? Tu school chalu karega kya? I said, yeah, karega. So, and obviously, people feel that it is something, it requires massive capital. But a good thing is I started this whole thing on a $50,000 capital. That's it. That was my initial pool of capital. Everything else followed. Right? Today, whatever the scale and size it is, of course we work with the banks and others. But the important part is it's a mindset. If you believe that you need a $10 million corpus to start a school, you don't need to. And those days were very friendly for school operators as well as, so the working capital, generally you tend to have a much more negative working capital as compared to what you would expect to set up a manufacturing plant. So that's an advantage. So sorry for the long answer, but no, basically to say that I think technology was an advantage to me. everywhere you see today CEOs who are tech familiar take far better decisions, take much riskier decisions, and are able to see something very different for the organization that a typical B-school non-tech person is not able to see.
No, I think Atul, you were very smart because we only in the last decade or two have started to figure out how to convert everything to a SaaS-based model. You did that 3 decades ago because in a school, guess what guys, once one kid goes in primary through high school, that's 12 years, and then the next sibling or a cousin comes along, that's another 3-4 years later. So every family pays for about 14, 15, 16 years. So the best annuity business is really a school business. So I think you really cracked it. But I know you kind of played down the infra part of it, but there's a lot of talent required, and there is definitely some infrastructure required. How did you go about that? Starting from one school here in Singapore, you grew in and around the region, then across overseas, then Middle East, and across. Now it's really truly a global brand. So how did you go about doing that?
So I think Singapore, we were fortunate. We started in a small church in a place called Mount Sophia. I said, how do I look for a building? And something just struck me. So I went and put a $15 classified ad in the Straits Times. And I said, wanted school, please contact so-and-so mobile number. In a week, I got a call saying, there's a school building available in Mount Sophia. Would you like to start? I went there, I met the pastors, and the pastor said, what do you want to do? I said, I want to start a school. He said, very good. You know why? Because we use only the auditorium. All the classrooms are empty. So you can start your school here. We'll do our church service on the weekend. And actually that was very helpful because I did not have the capital to do such a large infrastructure. Okay, so obviously asset heavy was ruled out. But I requested the pastor. I think generally the churches and the religious institutions have a very different view of education. They're not like my real estate is $6 a square feet, you pay me that. They were like, okay, how much you can pay? I said, I'll pay you $10,000 a month. That's it. And they got started. And they said, no problem. You start here. As you scale, you pay more rent. And for us, the rent is not important. It's more important that you start a school and the community gets a benefit out of it. And that's how. So I think the first break happened in a very, very auspicious way, and the church was very grateful. I think the subsequent ones were more about replicating that. So we went about to Japan, to Malaysia, 2005, 2006, and we tried to look for buildings which could be potentially used as schools. So in Malaysia, we did very interesting. I got a call. I was doing the rounds and trying to look for it. I got a call saying, there are some 10 bungalows which are 1940s, but the bungalows are bang next to KL Central. Would you be interested? So I said, okay, I'll come down. So we went there. I brought in 1 or 2 architects, and I said, look, this is a type A or type B conservation buildings. Let's conserve this whole thing. If you remember, there used to be huts and houses in India with the flooring used to be timber or teak. This was the same type, and the whole teak was gone with termites. So we had to literally conserve it. So that is how that happened. The Japan school actually was very interesting. It was a 1-week holiday during the first week of May, and I walked into Japan. I called a few people. I said, they said, come here, and we desperately need an international school here. Not necessarily an Indian, but we want an international school because we think what you guys are doing in Singapore is great. And it was absolutely word of mouth. So in Japan, I said, okay, can you look for me some buildings? I'll come and I'll see it. And I walked over in May 2005, and I said, okay, we like the building. It was perfect fitting in the very nice residential area. So we took it up, and that's how Japan started. So Campus 1, Campus 2, Campus 3 just happened in a span of 2002 to 2006. But what was very important there was no element of sense of business. It was like, let's roll out as many schools as possible. Let's create as many capacity that we can create as possible. And let the community start enjoying the school. Because for Japan, it was the first school with Indian curriculum. For Malaysia, it was the first school with Indian curriculum. Even today in Malaysia, there is no other school with Indian curriculum. Only GIS is the one. Japan, we were the first ones to set up our school. But of course, prior to that, there was another school that was started. We gave them all the IP materials and everything, and that's how they started. So we feel that infrastructure is important, but somehow if things are to fall in place, just fall in place. I mean, you can't really expect Or if I go to McKinsey and say, tell me how to start a business. Anybody from McKinsey here? Right? Or any consultant, right? They will say, you go prepare a business plan. There was nothing. There was nothing. It was like, I just knew how to operate Excel. And we used to run Lotus 123 in Mumbai office. And, but it's just like things fall in place. God is so gracious that opportunities arise and you are able to get the right solution. And that's how I think it got started. It starts getting capital intensive because then we started looking at India and everybody said, you must buy land. And that's where we needed capital. So by the time we were at that stage, we had enough capital to go and invest. Yeah. And in Noida also, very interesting thing happened. I had worked in Noida in HCL. I'd done about 2-3 years there in 86, 87. And I knew Sector 3, I knew Sector 11 was coming up. And so when I had an opportunity, somebody called me up. We set up an office in Chasola. And I called my colleague and he said, you know what, there's a land available in Noida. Do you want to come and take a look at it? So we looked at it. We literally stood there in that land for 5 minutes. And I said, just buy it. He said, Arey, aapko Noida ka pata nahi hai kya? Main kaha, sab malum hai mujhe. So 5 minutes we did a transaction of a school land in Noida. And the thing got done and then we started a school in India. The first school was very important to do it properly so that you can literally translate what vibes you want, what philosophy you want to project, etc. And we were told that, you must trademark yourself first before you get into India. Otherwise, I would have been behind Vivek Bhai to start protecting my trademarks. But yeah, that's what we did because we had to protect the global Indian trademarks in the initial phase. It was tough because agencies in India were very, very resistant to giving a global Indian. So we got the trademark for global Indian. So anyway, I think the infrastructure piece can be solved for, but yes, if it is the first hurdle that you want to cross, and depending on the city, it can become very capital intensive. And then I think definitely you need a pool of capital or a pool of investors to do this. I had interesting investors coming in from Singapore because obviously when this was announced, a lot of people started reaching out to me. And I had a businessman from Siblim Square who reached out to me saying, boss, karna hai kya? Main kaha, nahi, we don't need capital. And then a lot of other interesting people, very good people, very well-intentioned people who came out. But somehow I felt we don't need the capital, we can manage it. And literally in the second year, we had a break even in the schools. So it was just everything, what we learned in our old days. And I would say HCL is one company where you get grilled, particularly when you join in the first 5 years. You are literally treated like a horse, you just bang, 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 run. But the systems you learn there, the process of time management, I remember I got whacked from my boss saying, why did you waste 1 hour in between this and this? And I had to give a daily call report with all number of hours I spent on what I do. And literally they used to check every day and then they used to flag the thing saying that, if you have to go and watch a movie, you just can't do it in Bombay because they used to track. But the time management thing was very important. We learned there. So yeah, I mean, it's a complex thing, but once you get to the right solution and how you want to do education, and just to give you an idea of market size, Singapore and Dubai are 5 billion US market, just 2 cities, 5 billion US. India, where Vivek has a very big asset, Bombay, Bangalore and Hyderabad is 3 billion. Right? These 5 cities together is 8 billion annual revenue on private schools. We don't get this idea. But if you talk to anybody there, I mean, there's so much of opportunities. And literally what happens is people see that this is a good after retirement, this is a business that we should do only later, or maybe a family member who's not very active gets involved in that. And I think if people realize the amount of potential which is there, if I tell you schools have EBITDA of $700 billion, you will say, what nonsense. Schools have EBITDA of $700 billion US. So the market is too big, but nobody sees it, nobody talks about it. But I'm here to talk about, I want to encourage more people to get into education.
No, I must say that from a very humble beginning at that little church, for those of you who haven't seen Atul's school in Punggol, I would really recommend strongly. It's something to be seen. So you've come a long way, Atul, really. That's many congratulations. Fantastic. But Atul, now just switching gears for a second. school and education is not the only thing that you are involved with. You are involved in a lot of things. Prantik did goad me to say, Puneet, you're not going to get your dinner if you don't ask some personal question. So still I'm hovering around the periphery. I know you were very involved in cricket. You've been avid cricketer. You in fact had Chandu Bode on your board as well. You've done a lot of that. Tell us what's happening in that space and what are you doing? And in fact, I mean, there are a few people here who actually have gotten involved in many sports or organizations like OGQ, etc. We at TIE have many members over here. So would love to hear what you're doing over there as well.
No, I think we had a very normal childhood when we had opportunities to play all the sports, Mostly it was cricket for us. But when we were in the high school, for me personally, my high school was like one vertical building, 4-story. It was the best merit crunchers in Maharashtra, one of the best in Maharashtra. And it had no place for cycle also. So we had to literally put our cycle in somebody's house or outside somebody's house. So we lacked sports in the high school days, so to grade 9 to grade 12. So I felt the school should have a lot of activities on sports because that opens up the person, that opens up the other side of the capabilities and competencies. And so we made sure that cricket was part of the schools. Of course, cricket is anyway part of any schools where more Indians are. But we also had fortune of having Mr. Chandu Bode, who was one of the most iconic cricketing stars in India. He's the one who got Sehwag in, who's the one who got Tendulkar in, and the many more iconic people. He's now 90 plus. But he told us when he got associated with the schools, he said, you know what, you do a cricket academy, okay, and we must produce the top talent of cricket from this academy to go and play. I know you don't have a screening process and you're not getting enough talent as one can get in India, but we should do what we can do best in Singapore. I'm happy to say that we initiated this cricket in schools. We initiated a special training camp for high performing cricketers. So today, if you look at the Singapore Cricket Association, the under 13, under 19, under 17 teams, more than 50% of the players are actually from our schools. One of our, and they are doing very well. I mean, one of our students from Ahmedabad school got selected in the IPL, but he never got a chance to play. But one of the IPL teams, 2 years back, he got selected there. So there is a momentum on cricket. Cricket is now also seen as a major business, perhaps more lucrative than the education. Owning clubs and playing for it also is like a fantastic thing. But the opportunities I can say is that we want to train these people to take up further opportunities. I find it's easier to get into an Australian team than to get into a Singapore team or an Indian team, of course, is ruled out. There's heavy competition there. So cricket has been one. Personally, I've been also playing badminton. I used to play a lot of badminton and tennis. While in my Delhi days, I used to go early morning from Mayur Vihar, go on a two-wheeler, go to a place called DLTA. Right, and play early morning 6 o'clock tennis over there with 2 of my friends. So, but the last 10 years, to be honest, the last decade has been not very active. Many things have been, I've not been able to chase that. But, and also I do a couple of cycling days sometimes. In a month, I pull out my cycle and go down to Changi and come back. But again, as you move, sometimes your calendar becomes so terrible that even Saturday, Sundays becomes a little bit of, out of place. But we continue to do that, but I make sure that our teams, when they design the curriculum, when they work on the sports curriculums, they get the best coaches, the best equipment, the best guidance and trainings that are required. So it's all like falling into place, and we have so many students doing very well, whether it's tennis. I know 2 of our kids went to Florida.
Anytime somebody comes here, any event, including our own event, I have to confess that I sit on a board called CFAS, and we're actually having the presidential dinner, which Atul's very graciously agreed to host, at his campus. I mean, when the visit of Jaishankar came here, you had the whole community there. So how do you find so much time and passion, not just doing what you do for schools, but really for the community? That's very interesting.
I would say The moment that opened the eyes towards community was a small interaction with then President of India, Dr. Kalam. So he literally schooled me for saying there are no poor people in Singapore. Because he asked me, what are you doing for poor people? And I said, so there are no poor people in Singapore. And he said, what nonsense. You go and find out. But I think what he said was absolutely on the spot, on the dot, because then I started going to SIDA and other organizations, and I said, can we help? Okay, you guys have the outreach. So we started a massive outreach program. I think combined with scholarships and the amount of, we've contributed to the social causes for community. I think we have spent over $10 million in this particular space, helping every single charity. Before COVID, during COVID, we did a lot of work with various CDCs to provide them funding for the CDFWs and to basically channel that capital for people to get food. Because during that time when you were locked down, those 3 months, people didn't have money to buy food. So we dished out a lot of NTUC vouchers through them because we didn't know who to go to. So we work generally in Singapore space and many other locations. We work with the communities, and actually that moment that Dr. Kalam opened up, it actually opened our view towards the entire communities, because then we said you can't ignore it, right? The schools are one space, but the communities are also equally same space. We exist because of the community. We have to be together with the community in the space they are, in the space we are. And I got a very nice compliment from the former Speaker of Singapore, Mr. Charles Chong. He was also the MP for one of the constituencies where our school is. And he said, you are a great example of an international school, a local international school, because the local school had the local vibes. You are international by way of your curriculum, your students, but we feel you are an local school. Because that's a very positive compliment, because we've been connected with the various communities, the Queenstown CC, the Juchia CC, the Pungal CC. In between we had the Tanjung Pagar, the GRC. We were part of Queenstown area, etc. So what we enjoy most is to find if there is a problem. If there's a problem, we are there to help. Capital is not the only thing. Many times people do want, like once Cinda said, can you have so many teachers, you have so many parents, can we mobilize some people to do some English reading programs for our kids? We have this program. So we work with them, encourage some of our parents to go and work with them. So there's a lot of ideation, there's a lot of work with people can contribute, students can contribute, because we have community action service now ingrained into the entire school curriculum. So every child, depending on what age they are in, they spend about 10 hours to 40 hours per year trying to do community service. So we made that as part of the frameworks. And I think therefore, for us, doing anything in the community is very, very natural. And we feel that it's something that we should all contribute. Many times people just look for headline moments saying that, oh, I spent 100 million to this, I spent 5 million for this, or $500,000. But it's not that. It's a smile that you get on the people who are beneficiaries. And if they tell you what they got the help in a timely way, it's very important. And I think we applied the same model to every country. We are in 11 countries today. Malaysia, we do a lot of work with, through one of our advisors, with people who are in the prison, who are actually jailed, but we do the counseling for them, and we provide them the counseling help. In Japan, we do a lot of work with the communities. Aging is a big issue there. So we do work with the town councils to help out the community in different ways. India, everybody did, right? All of us contributed in many ways in whatever we could do. We sent oxygen cylinders from here. We sent the concentrators, O2 concentrators. We got them from China, and everybody then exported it. And I was so glad that governments were so responsive during that time. We got 500 oxygen concentrators shipped, landed in Delhi. I had no idea who the vendor was. We cut a check to him. They sent it, and by the time I informed the people in Delhi, they said by evening we'll change the rule and exempt all these products for duty exemption. And those concentrators landed up in the remotest part of India. They didn't go to Delhi and metros. In fact, I remember one of our, somebody we knew here, he said, my parents need a concentrator. Can you give me one? I said, I have no control on that. The whole thing is gone to an organization called Seva International, and Seva International distributed that to the northern India remote corners. So we feel that we should do our part in whatever small way we can, it can be from your neighborhood, it can be from your local communities, and whatever small way we can help. I think people don't look for capital and funding. People just look for empathy. People look for the fact that you're paying attention to us and you are really taking care of our community. So I think that's how the whole community piece pulled it together.
I must say, we have, Atul, congruency of goals. We too, like everybody else, stepped up to the plate, and we also at TIE collected about 3.5 million US, which we sent to India. We worked with Give India. So our goals are congruent, but more than that, I want to headline, we're also a community-minded organization. If you're continuing to do for community, there's one great community called TIE Singapore. Please work with us and give some to us as well, guys.
Surely.
Atul, I want to open the floor up. Actually, there are many people here who want to ask many questions of you. But before I do that, the award, really is a great samman, frankly speaking, and we're very proud that you're amongst us, that you've gotten this thing. We feel very proud that if somebody from the community, somebody from the cohort has gotten this, it gives us tremendous motivation for all of us to not just embrace you as our own, but really to emulate and see what else we can do. But what does this mean for you? And what's the journey ahead after this for you? Does this do anything for you? Does it change anything for you? Does it open any doors for you? Does it put you on the spotlight where you now have to do something else? So congratulations to the award once more. Really, that's fantastic, fabulous. There are, for ladies and gentlemen, there are less than, Atul is the 5th recipient, he informed me, actually from Singapore. So ever since the award has been given out, last year was Piyush Gupta, and this year is Atul, before that was Keshav, Ambassador Pani, before that, and there were people there. And the process, while there were 25 awards given, but really the very, very long list, then the long list of 400, then the short list, and finally the awardees. So it's a very, very rigorous process. It comes from across the world. I also, just a personal plug, last year my cousin's wife, actually, Puneet Pushkarna, she lives in Israel, she also got it, and she told me it's very, very difficult. So I can understand and really appreciate what you do. Yeah. But what does the award mean to you? Congratulations, and tell us that.
I think the award is a bit difficult to define, because I attended the first Pravasi conference, I think it was first or second edition, in 2003. Dr. L.M. Singhvi, who used to be the chairperson of the high-level committee on Indian diaspora, which recommended to the then Atalji government on issuing PIO cards and recognizing diaspora as a formidable force. I was very fortunate to have him on the trust and the foundation as a founding president of GIS. And his son now is a leading lawyer, Abhishek Singhvi. So when I used to talk to Dr. Singhvi, he used to say that, look, I've actually done this report on diaspora. That time, I think count was about 22 million, as per the definition. But it included a lot of people of Indian origin, I think up to third or fourth generation. So that number now, I understand, is now scaled up to 35 million because they have also included the sixth generation people from different countries. Now, out of 35 million to be chosen once in 2 years is like really, it's something that beats the Padma Awards also. I don't know how many Padma Awards are given, I think 100 plus every year out of 1.2 billion. So obviously this is a bit more easy, but to get it, because I was there on the first episode of Pravasi's Bharatiya Divas, it I think was in Delhi, same December-Jan period, and having seen that and having seen the dignitaries coming in there and the kind of people who are getting awarded and recognized, I think that said to me that, look, our diaspora is formidable. It was very clear that it's not something that you can count as cheap labor or just doctors and lawyers, but this diaspora is going to play an important role. I think just got a feeling. And I had tears in my eyes when I was sitting there. My brother was saying, "Abhi tu ro raha hai, log dekh rahe hain, tere ko tu ro raha hai." But I felt that as a diaspora, it meant a lot, not just the fact that there was a recognition being done, But the fact that diaspora engagement is getting on, whether it's a government A, B, C, or D, ultimately that started the process. So initially it was yearly, then it became once in 2 years when they realized that it's not really happening. And but I think it's a whole purpose of mobilizing diaspora, encouraging them. I mean, this year, what we heard from Prime Minister Modi, he even encouraged that, you should go in your own countries and create miniature Pravasis events and actually recognize your own people, because it's impossible to recognize everybody who's doing good job. So at your country level, if you start recognizing people for the contributions they've done to your communities, so everything that comes out of Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, which originally was more deemed like a government bureaucratic event, eventually turned out to be a very people's movement where very well engaging people in the North American, European and the Asian hemisphere. And that has led to, I think, the positivity on diaspora performance, achievements, contributions to their countries, leading important roles in leadership, in governance, in state, etc. I think it's all just happening together. It's the rich education that we got together, the rich values we got from our parents, and the fact that we have been able to do it in a very simple and a very nimble way. That is very, very important. And I think the diaspora, kudos to the diaspora, because I kept saying, I said, I'm a lucky chap. I got this recognition, but there are hundreds and thousands like me who are doing so much of work, perhaps in the background, perhaps in the different spaces. But it's an award to recognize overall the diaspora contribution. It's not just a single award for me per se, but it's about, if there are diaspora people who can do more in education, why not we set up 100 more schools in different countries? Why not today our schools in Japan, if I tell you our highest number of students in Japan are Japanese students. They come to our schools for Indian education, for science, maths, language, and they are coming to Indian schools. So when we give this feedback to our Indian education ministries and the officials, they're like, oh, is that so? I said, come and see it. So we always felt, particularly Indian education was a bit less hyped, less marketed, but fundamentally super strong. So if you have a super strong foundation on education, I think it really helps. So I think it really is the diaspora event, the diaspora recognitions. To me, I think we've got to do 100 times more now. Whatever we have done, we used to do it, okay, we are doing. But now with the recognition, I feel I need to motivate more people to do something. You guys are of the age where some of you are, in your 30s and 40s. You can spend another 20 years in education. Of course, you do the right things and have the right models in place.
We're not that far away from 2030s.
But yeah, and I think, we speak to our young generation. I mean, India has this 2047 Viksit Bharat plan. Obviously, today's school generation kids are going to be working there in their prime that time, in 47. So we need to make sure that our message goes down, that don't look at just corporate careers, look at community careers, social careers. They are also an important role you can play.
Atul, you're always humble, very humble. A yield of 25 people out of 35 million, that ratio I cannot even comprehend. I never even could get in the first 10 in my entire class of only 40, 50 people. So, kudos to you guys. Congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll open the floor for questions. If any of you have questions, see hands over there, Bipin. I don't know, there's some mics going around. Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, Puneet. Thank you, Atul. Fantastic. I mean, firstly, so proud of what you've achieved and, what we gain as reflected glory from your achievements. So thank you very much for that, firstly. Second, what I wanted to ask you is, as an educator, one of the things that you have, the power that you have, is also in kind of getting things which are very Indian and introducing them or reintroducing them to the world at large. Some of the very traditional and very important things that India has always had have been lost to the world, unfortunately. What do you think are some of the key things that you see from your perspective that GIS or the Global Schools Foundation does in getting those very innately Indian things to the rest of the world. And I'm also very amazed to hear about what's happening in Japan. There are Japanese kids who are learning about India and getting exposed to that. So I'd like to understand that a little bit, please.
Sure. So, although our journey started as a Indian curriculum school, but quickly it morphed into an international education because of international curriculums. But over a period of the last, I would say, 6 years, we've branched off from, or rather 7 years, from being a single school, single name, to multiple school names, or you can call it a branch. Now, some of it came through acquisitions, so we deployed some capital and we acquired some schools. But more importantly, each school represents its own.
Can you state how many schools do you have in the different brands that you're building? I think that will be very helpful to the crowd here.
Yeah, I think we have overall 64 campuses in 11 countries. We educate about 45,000 students. And we have about 12 school brands in our portfolio. So now you can look at it as a Hilton and the Sheratons of the world. But I think it's important to have that because each brand, each school represents certain beliefs, certain ethos. So as far as GIS is concerned, we've kept it innately Indian. So Sanskrit, yoga were like introduced in the year 1. Okay, spoken Sanskrit and yoga is obviously there. We've also been encouraging a lot of these traditional Indian sports, the kho-khos and the kabaddis in the schools. And we do once a year, twice a year, we do competitions in that during some Indian festivals. But for schools which are not GIs, but let's say One World International School, or Harrods we have in Cambodia, or we have the Bright School in South Korea, they have their own character. There is nothing Indian about it. So we have to make sure that the constituency and demographics that we serve have their own build in that, and their own expectations and aspirations are imbibed in those particular schools. So it's absolutely different. So it is like black and white. The brands will be very different. But what's great about having different schools under your portfolio is that you have a massive synergy of many things. All the common activities are the same. Your front-ending is different, your curriculums are almost the same. We offer almost 10 curriculums. We do American curriculum, we do British curriculum, we British national, British international, IB curriculums, CBSE, ICSE, IPC, I mean, you just name it. So each school becomes a very independent solution in itself to the community. So where it is GIS, you can, and a lot of expats actually get attracted to GIS for the fact that they are going to go through an international curriculum. We have both international and CBSE parallel, but they can have international curriculum if they are relocating from anywhere, yet they will have the best placements of GIS. At the same time, they will have that Indian ethos and Indian culture embedded into the school, and that's why many parents love it. So we try to keep as many cultural elements together. Similarly, when it comes to other schools, so we also have a Chinese international school in Manila. We try to keep it as Chinese as possible, right? Because people expect that school to be having Chinese culture. And I think this is how you make sure that every school represents the community's aspirations and the ethos. And it's a very bespoke solution to each community and each city.
Very good. Thank you. Wow, 45,000 students. Really inspiring, truly inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing what you shared. So I have one, of course, like Puneet thanked you, being the co-organizing chair of CPAS, not only gave the place, but also big donation you started. Now we are more than break even and we're doing on the way. The two issues which entrepreneurs face from my mentorship I see is about the family, right? If people are mid-career or somewhere they want to quit, especially like you, being doing very well, all of a sudden $1 million salary stops and you want to start entrepreneurship with $50,000. The first thing is, if I don't succeed, what will happen to the family? If I'm 25, 23, it's okay, because you're a new starting, fairly we can restart. So how did you overcome at that stage? Is it you set aside 3-4 years of cash reserve? I mean, what strategy you followed, or is it just jumped into the water? That's the first question. Second one is failures. It's a fantastic growth, but some of the failures which really made what you are and the learnings derived from that. Thank you.
I will say, for me, it was jump in the water. There was nothing much fancy to it. It was because I believed in education. My father had done a lot of work in education despite being a mining engineer. And his approach was more about saving the lives of the workers who come from Bihar, UP, Punjab to work in coal mines, and they were not educated on safety patterns and all that. So he used to do his own outside the office hours, write some books, and he wrote some 20 books. So I saw the power of education. It was not just about making a person literate and get more earnings, it was about saving lives. So to me, that was the most fantastic example of what education could do. And he used to literally go to artists and say, can you create a poster? And then they used to animate the whole thing and say, you wear the gloves like this, or you wear the boots like this. And it was actually saving lives, and it was making a big difference to the community. For me, it was more about trying to be convinced that education is definitely a good thing. Now, whether the model survives, whether the economics work, etc., was something that I had to do it on the fly. I didn't have access to experts that time. Of course, I knew Excel, I knew what finance is. I had done my MBA recently, maybe a decade prior to that from Singapore, and so I felt that it is manageable. I didn't get anxiety over the whole thing of what if this is a failure, what will my friends say, you are an idiot, like the 12th pass fail or whatever that types. So I said, look, there's no downside. I can always go back to the industry and do whatever I want. So it was about taking a calculated risk. And every year for me was a life in itself. Every year we had different milestones. Every year we had different situations. And the more it was getting better and better, the more confidence we got. So when we started with 48 students, to the first year we ended with 300 plus students. EDB officer, a guy called Jonathan, walked into my office in Mount Sophia and he said, Atul, I am from EDB. I said, great. Do you have any problems? I said, yes, I have a problem. I don't have a place here. My campus is full. I can only take 400 students. So he said, okay, we'll go back and come back to you in a week, 1 month time. They came back and said, you know what, we're going to start a new project called Global Schoolhouse, and we will give you a school building under that, and can you please pay the rent properly, you don't... So he had the doubts whether we could pay the rent. I said, don't worry, Jonathan, we'll pay the rent. And incidentally, that gave us the boost, because we then got a proper campus, a large campus. Of course, Mount Sophia was small, but could take more than 600 kids. But this was big, 1,800, 2 massive wings. It looked like a massive school. And that was the benefit that we had for getting into that. In terms of failures, look, every industry, every business has failures. Sometimes we see failures on account of people. Sometimes we see failures on account of people you deal with. Sometimes you see you have made fundamental mistakes in governance and therefore you are paying the price. I think it's a combination of all. But the good thing is to be positive about it. Yes, it's a failure mistake, no problem, let's do it. You try and support your team members to say, if you fail, no, don't worry, that's my problem. If you succeed, that's your problem. So we use that approach. And that gives a lot of comfort and confidence to our colleagues who work with us from very, very different industries, very, very good experiences. And they find that there is a certain autonomy in driving something. And in a way, it empowers people to do more innovation on the job, empowers people to take decisions. And we do take collective decisions. I mean, today my colleague Prasoon is here. He's a chief investment officer, comes with a very strong private equity background. So we do have discussions about every investment. But then we are all empowered to say, okay, fine, this is our money. Let's go and invest it properly. Let's make sure that the funds we use are getting proper returns to the fund providers. And that's how we do it. But to me, a failure is not a stigma. We can accept it, and we have to just go ahead from there.
Thank you. I mean, 1 second. I just want to ask a question. How many people in this room are investors? If you can raise their hand, who are also do investing. I think getting an investor is the best thing you can do, because that person actually not only puts in the money, but he or she continues to root for your success and work for you free of charge. Atul was the smartest person. Remember Venkat, first check came from Aparna. So a question of criticism wasn't there. She was doubling down. Hey, make sure my money's at work. I don't want to lose my capital. So the home story was fixed right there by his model. Okay.
That after he started the school, I had to make sure I'm earning and keeping the family afloat. Otherwise, if he fails, there will be problems.
Yes, I have to say that Aparna is actually a tech professional. I don't know if she still continues to keep IBM afloat or not. I've been after her for decades to saying, Aparna, please, IBM can flounder, can go on its own. Please show those. I'm not sure what she does, whether she's still keeping them afloat or not.
She has a very high bar of everything. So I remember even after starting the school, 1 year later, I said, my son is now going to grade 7, so let's move him. She said, no, I want to see 1 year performance. I want to see how it works. Then I will decide. I said, तुम ही बोलोगे ऐसा तो लोग भी तो वैसे ही बोलेंगे. So, but anyway, I think, the investors have a very unique role. But I think when you are investing, I think apart from capital, if you invest in the journey of that entrepreneur, it's a very different experience. If you are trying to make, it's not just alignment and the KPIs and the overall returns that the funds can make, but it's about the journey with the aspirations of what we want to do. I think the last 5 years we've invested, it's been amazing to work with people from the institutional side because it's not like whatever you decide is wrong and whatever I decide is right. And always entrepreneurs, they are concerned about the lack of visibility sometimes investors bring in, because investors will be like the tenure is limited, they want to get many things done for many platforms and many investments. But I think that ultimately when you build that trust with the entrepreneur, that I'm here for you with the downside and the upside, I think that will change your investment cycles very differently.
Well said.
On a lighter note, you can start a Marriott Bonvoy type program with all of your schools and your kids who come out. Now, my question is about introducing the concept of entrepreneurship in the schools. I know in Thai we try to encourage that as well. But do you do that across the institutions, or if not, can we help in engaging with the schools in various locations?
Absolutely. I think entrepreneurship is one of our key development areas for the children. We have a framework called 9 Gems, and entrepreneurship and leadership is part of that. And if I take away the entrepreneurship part, yes, before COVID, we used to work with INSEAD and one of the professors of INSEAD to come up with an entrepreneurship boot camp. I do remember when Karan Singh Thakral was the president of TAI, we used to bring in proxy investors and bring in. But post-COVID, it got held up for a reason because the prof went to Canada. And yes, but I think it's something that we can work very closely with TAI, and there is a huge amount of talent in that under 18 age, huge amount of talent. I mean, you read about a 22-year-old Indian sitting on the DOG agency and working on it. I mean, there's a talent that is boundless. So we can definitely work on this. We can create a nice program that we can execute jointly in the region. And the idea is to really motivate kids to come up and pitch. And today, I mean, they're learning economics in grade 9 and grade 10, right? So why not? Yeah.
Okay. Just I want to say, maybe Jaya, I'll take this last question. Atul's around here, and Gautam, so, then we'll kind of socialize, sit down, and have this chat. So I don't want to let him go before he has a chance to talk to everybody, but I was just thinking that kind of keep it open and relaxed. So, Jaya, if you don't mind.
Yes. Thank you, Atul, for sharing your perspectives and the success story of GIS. As a Singaporean and having both my parents in education, I'd like to know what your take is, having been an expert in education and being very familiar with the Singapore situation. How are we faring education-wise from primary to university in preparing our younger people in Singapore for the world of tomorrow?
I think Singapore is one of the best examples of education. You look at the PISA ratings, Singapore is always in top 3. Singapore has a very evolved, very advanced system, but always, as in every country I have seen, people in the country never think their system is the best. So we always have that other feeling as well. But I think if you look at the higher learning aspect, Singapore has done amazing work in the last 15, 20 years, bringing in more diversity in the institutions. You've got SUSS coming, SIT coming, and the various management schools and universities. We have a fantastic spread on that. But I think there is always a thinking that are we aligning jobs and the competencies given in the courses, and also aligning those university competencies in the school education. I think that mapping is an evolving process. So it's more about making sure that so suppose Singapore wants to go more fintech way. Are we getting more talent trained at school level, at university level? And the cycle changes in 10 years. So suddenly you have to midway switch over to suddenly a new, maybe there's an AI research booming, and then you have to get into that. So as educators, the biggest task is to be having the right senses in the industry so we work a lot with the industry, we talk to them, we regularly bring in speakers from different industries, and we try to talk to universities as well, to what are you building on, what are the areas. For example, I remember I went to Palo Alto in Stanford, and I talked to the director and I said, tell me what skills you want. And he said, you know what, we want to see them to provide some leadership capabilities, demonstrate that as evidence during their school years. We want them to be very highly community focused, yet trying to see the business side of things. And this, they told us in 2010, 2011, when we had a school in San Jose. And Puneet helped us a lot Puneet and Sukarna helped us. We had the first school in San Jose. Unfortunately, we had to close it down in 3 years period. But that was the feedback more or less every university gave. So if the alignment between the industry in your country and your tertiary education is aligned properly, and I think in Singapore it is pretty much aligned. So there are a lot of options, and also we need to align with the school side. So this rework and work has to go on a continuous basis. And I think Singapore is placed very well. I mean, today, with a drop of a hat, families in Asia are willing to send their kids to Singapore. You look at Indonesia, they send so many kids here. India, particularly Indian families from India, they want to send their kids here over options to Europe or US or UK. So I think Singapore is very well placed in the education space. Now, I would not get into the discussions about MOE and other things because that's the space, but I think in a overall private education space, there's a little bit of slide towards providing schools for the ultra-rich. And that's a sector, it's a bit of a chicken and egg. Singapore is, because, influx of all this last 2-3 years of billionaires and family offices, there's a push for creating schools which are charging 60,000, 70,000 fees. And that's going to happen very soon. There was recently tender by EDB, and I think the pricing is going to go off the roof. So very soon you'll have annual fees of $60,000 in the next 4 to 5 years. But that's catering to a rich segment, ultra-rich segment. And I remember the words of Dr. Kalam, we are not here for the rich. The rich will find their own way. They have the capital, they have the options, they can fly down their kids to Switzerland, but we have to do things for our community here. So I think we stay focused there, and we think there's a lot of work to do.
Atul, I'm sure there are many people here in the crowd who want to talk to you, and they'll catch you during dinner. But I want to just say, really thank you very much. As Bipin said, we are very proud to call you as one of our own, really as a long-standing charter member, as a great friend, as a person who does so much for the community. Once again, many congratulations and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Puneet, and thank you, Atul, for inspiring and sharing the backstory. Like you rightly said, reflected glory. It's also just very inspiring for all of us. I think the call to action of sort of not just to the 20s and 30s, but to everyone to sort of do more in different fields. And Naveen, thank you for sort of bringing up the Thai youth entrepreneurship. That's something that we'll be kickstarting coincidentally from this year, and we'll definitely take it up with your office to see how best could we collaborate across the region. Before we sort of open up for networking, drinks, and some conversation as well, Puneet, I would like to request you to give something small to Atulji from our side, from the Thai community, to felicitate and celebrate this moment.
Thank you. Okay. keeping with the Indian tradition, Atul, I'm going to drape this shawl for you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you.